what a great day to sew something wonderful. I'm Kea with Kea Bee, and I am so excited to be back here today. I have a really fun project planned for you, and I want you to actually grab your 5-inch scrap bin. I think we're gonna use a couple of 5-inch pieces and make a 16 patch star. I came across some leftover half square triangles, and I was just kind of playing around with them and getting a good layout and created this really fun star. Now obviously I did not create the star, it's just the way that you lay it out. And so when I laid this out, I thought, oh, that looks so cute. And my half square triangles were actually only about an inch and a half tall, or an 1.5 inch square. And so I used those to create a tiny little 2.5 inch block, and I used them as part of something really fun that I'll show you at the end of the tutorial. So let's go ahead and come in a little closer. We'll talk about the materials that you need to make this 16 patch and really what fun ideas you can use with this block. Materials that you're going to need for today's project are very simple. We need 2 5-inch background squares, and I'm just using this little recipe fabric from Lori Holt, and it's actually a good cookie recipe that you can actually use. And then you need 2 accent colors, also 5-inch squares. You need a regular rotary cutter and a ruler. Also some type of marking utensil. This is going to be on the back of our fabric, so really just a lead pencil would be just fine. And then I'm going to use my wool pressing mat just because it's right here, and a hot iron. And then we'll get this all made. I'll show you how to make the 12 patch, and then I'll show you one step further how to make it into a little mug rug as a cute Christmas gift, or just if you're going to someone's house for the holiday, it's nice just to take like a little gift or something. So let's get started. First off, you want to take and separate your 5-inch squares. You need an accent, you will need an accent fabric and then your background fabric, and we're gonna layer those right sides together. And what's gonna happen is we are gonna take our marking tool and we're gonna mark our corners. So what that means is I'm gonna set it on the diagonal here. I'm going to take my ruler and lay it from corner to corner. And I'm also going to notch it over just a hair because the tip of your pen or pencil has a width to it. So you want to make sure that you really are marking from corner to corner. And so we've got one direction and the other, and you're going to want to do that on both background squares. Very simple. And I've already done this other one. And we are doing what is called an easy 8. So with these 5-inch squares, we are going to get 8 half square triangles out of this one and 8 half square triangles out of this one, and we are going to use 12 of the 16 that we make. So at this point, what you're going to want to do is go over to your sewing machine, and you are going to sew 1/4 inch away from each of these lines. So we're going to sew 1/4 inch away from this side, this side, this side, and this side. So you should have 4 lines drawn or sewn just off of your lines. So let's head over to the sewing machine and do that. I'm just gonna lay my presser foot down and zip down these here. So now we have both of those sets done, and let me hold it up here a little bit more closely. I know the lighting is off here, but you should have 2 lines sewn on either side of that drawn line. So now we're gonna do, it's very simple. I don't wanna press these yet. We're actually gonna cut them first. So you are going to cut in half. So you're gonna cut at 2.5 inches, lengthwise and widthwise. So we're basically cutting it very simply here, and we'll turn this. A rotating mat is really handy to have in this moment, and then you don't have to finagle your fabric at all. Let's make sure these are all lined up here. Okay, so now we've separated into 4. And what we do at this point is now we cut on top of that line that we drew. We're gonna cut these here. On the diagonal. Okay, so let's do that one more time. At this point, you should have 8 of each half square triangle. And for the moment, we are actually done with that. And we are going to bring over our pressing mat. And we're going to set the seams of each of these half square triangles. And we're gonna roll these back and open the seams up here. So we're gonna press towards your darker fabric. If your background is your darker fabric, that's totally acceptable. And you'll just wanna press to that darker fabric. So we've got this here. That just makes a little square. So we're gonna do that to all 16 of our squares. We might as well just go ahead and open them. And pressing our last one here. We can put our iron back. I love that iron. It is a Panasonic NIWL600 is the model number, and it's wireless and it keeps its charge for so long. I absolutely love it. Okay, so now we've got our 2 piles and we want to square up our half square triangles. What you can do at this point is take 2 from each, and that you can just set those aside. You can stash those. Those are great for a different project. Speaking of storing those, this is a great project for you to use leftover half square triangles from other projects. So if you're making flying geese or if you're dog earring things, take that extra time to flip it around and sew the extra seam. And then when you cut that excess fabric off, you're not just throwing away those usable triangles. You're actually getting some good use out of those. Okay, so now we've got both of these. We need to square them up, which should just be very simple. And what I'm going to use is just a Cute Cuts ruler here, just to mark my my squares. And let's take a look. What you're going to do is use the corner of your ruler and lay that just on the seam allowance up here in the corner. And what I do is I really like to give myself a good amount of space so that my squares match up to be the right size. And so with this, it looks like 2 inches is going to be a really good half square triangle size for me. So I'm going to go ahead and trim both sides just like that. And then I'm just going to rotate it all the way around. And now I can line up both of those straight edges on my 2-inch marks, just like that. And now I can just cut this excess, and it's so simple to make sure that my ruler, has squared up those half square triangles. So now I've got a perfectly square 2-inch half square triangle. Let's do that one more time. I'll do it on a different color so maybe you can see it a little better. So I'm just going to take it and lay it down here. I'm actually going to flip it this way. And I'm going to lay this on here just on top, and I want this corner to be touching this seam allowance, and this corner here, the 2-inch mark, to be touching the bottom seam allowance. I want to make sure that I'm looking all the way around, including the inside of these 2-inch marks, to make sure that I have fabric all the way around that I can cut off, and that is going to make it square. I cut 2 sides. Make sure that your fingers are out of the way. This is a really easy project to nip a tip of the finger here. So make sure your fingers are out of your way. Okay, now I'm gonna move my ruler, and these are my straight edges that I just cut. So all I'm gonna do is flip this around completely. Now we're going the opposite direction. So these are the two that I just cut, and I'm gonna line those up on my 2-inch marks. If you have a ruler and you're having trouble seeing the 2-inch marks, I will show you a really good trick. What you can do is just grab some washi tape. If you've just got a pile of washi tape, you can lay a piece of tape over these edges here and mark it on your ruler. It won't leave a residue or anything like that. You just mark your ruler so that it's easy for you to lay down and just quickly see. If you're doing a bunch of these, that's a great way to use that. Okay, so go ahead and trim up all 12 of your squares to 2 inches. As I was cutting these up and trimming them and thinking about the layout, earlier I said that we needed to take 2 of each color and set those aside because I was showing you a 12 patch. I'm actually showing you a 16 patch today, so we are going to use all 8 of half square triangles from both colors. So make sure that you grab those other 4 that I told you to set aside, and we are going to use those. I am so sorry, I just had spaced the amount that it needs to make the star. So the first thing that we're going to do is choose which color you want to be an accent in the center. I really like this turquoise, and so I'm going to choose that to be the accent and the navy to be the star points. I think it's going to look really interesting. So you're going to take 4 and point the turquoise towards the center. Now I'm just saying my colors so that we can keep it all straight, but you're going to take 1 of your colors and put those towards the center. I'm going to set these aside for just a moment because I'm done with those. For this next part, we're just going to use the blue. And we're going to make our star points. The easiest way to remember this is that your background fabric is going to point towards the center. And so we're going to make a V shape here, kind of like a flying geese. We're going to make that point just towards the center. So do you see how this arrow is going towards here with our background fabric? We're going to do that on all 4 sides. Okay, so now we've got our star points. Do you see how it's coming together? It's looking so cute. Now, the 4 turquoise that are left, we're going to use those as accents in the center. So you put the turquoise actually pointing outward, and so that makes just a really interesting corner square there. And now we've got 4 by 4, which is making this a 16 patch star. Now don't worry, I know 16 patch can kind of be a little intimidating. I'm going to show you a really interesting way with your sewing machine to keep the layout straight so that you don't mix up and you don't accidentally flip a half square triangle. So let's head over to our sewing machine here, and I'm going to show you something. We've talked about chain piecing before, and that's essentially what we're going to use in this first row. We're going to chain piece these first couples together, and we're not going to break thread in between. That's what chain piecing is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over so that the second row is on top of my first row, and I'm going to keep these right in the same order so I don't get messed up. And I'm going to take this first set here over to the sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch seam. Now you can pin. These are small enough that I feel confident I can just zip right down with a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, and you do not want to break thread, and you actually want to sew off just a tad. So you've given yourself some room. Now we're going to line up the next ones and just keep zooming down. And we're lining up the next. This is our 3rd set here. Just going to slide that under the presser foot and keep going. And our 4th set, we are also lining up. Just slide that under. Once you have all 4 sets, now you're going to break thread. And this strings them together. I don't want you to snip these apart, because here's the coolest thing. Now we've got these laid out here. So when you open them, you can check to make sure that you're still straight. So your turquoise should be in the corner, and this should be a star point. This next one should actually be turquoise as a star point, and then you've got your center square. So you're going to keep going. Now what you do is I just finger press these open, opposite directions. And they're still all pieced together here, chain pieced. So you've got some thread holding them together. All right, so I open these up with my fingers, just finger pressing, and I make sure that my star is still together here. Now I go to the next row. So I'm going to lay this on top of each set. The problem with laying each one on top now is I'm going to pick up this and they're all going to come with me. So I just leave these sitting as they are. I line these 2 up and I bring this whole set over to my sewing machine and I keep going. Remember, I'm not going to break thread after I sew these together. Can you kind of start to see the pattern here? So then we're going to just finger press these in the same direction that we had finger pressed the one before. That's really going to help here in the long run, and I'll show you why. Oh, look how well that little point matched up there. That's great. The last one, oh, that point matched up really well too. Isn't it exciting? No matter how long you've been quilting, you get excited about points matching up. Okay, so I'm going to examine to make sure I have everything still laid out, that it's still creating that star, and I'm going to start again with this top one. With that 4th row sewn on, the reason we chain pieced is because I can now pick this up and it's all together and I'm not getting my patches turned around or anything like that. And it's going to make it very simple for us to now sew our rows together into a square. Makes it really handy. So I'm going to take my hot iron and my wool pressing mat. I'm going to press my seams going the opposite direction. So what I chose to do, this 1st row is all facing that way, 2nd row is facing to the right, 3rd to the left, and 4th to the right. So I'm just going to take my time, make sure those are pressed evenly. I don't ever want to iron, so don't scoot your iron across your fabric. Just gently press down to make sure your seams are going the right direction. Move that out of the way. If y'all don't have one of these yet, make sure it's on your Christmas list. It really is so handy. It does not get hot on the other sides. I don't have a problem at all putting it right on top of my silicone mat, pressing what I need, and then moving on. It's just really handy. I really like it. I don't use starch or anything with it. It's really nice. Okay, so now we're ready. All our seams are pressed opposite directions. So really all we have to do now is flip this over and nest our seams. And what that means is if this seam at the first row is going this direction and this one's going that one, we just want to feel with our fingers those just kind of click together. And we are just going to head over to the sewing machine and sew these with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance each row. Okay, here we go. Now I'm just going to bring my iron back over and press these. I like to go from the opposite side. You want to set your seams first, and then I do like to go from the opposite side and kind of press my seams where I want them to go before I open them in the front. So what I mean is I'm going to open it this way first, and I'm just going to gently pull this just a tad to open that up and just kind of roll those out. And I'm not really pressing very hard. I'm not trying to get this pressed. I want these to be trained to go a certain direction. See if y'all can even see that. Here you go. I want to just train this seam to lay that direction, and then when I get to the opposite side, the right side of the block, then I can actually press it. So see, these aren't pressed yet, but when I flip it over, now they're gonna lay the right direction and I can actually press. And as simple as that, that is our 16 patch. Now what you're gonna wanna do is just to trim this up. I believe it ends up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6.5 inch block. So what I did is I took my 6.5 inch ruler, I lined it up with one of my seams. I'll do the same here to show you. And you see it just takes a little bit off each side. I'm using my seams that I created already to line this up. So I never want to go toward myself with a rotary cutter. So I'm not going to go ahead and cut off that side. I'm going to leave it for right now. And I'm going to use this as my straight edge. Turn it a 1/4 of a turn. Line up a seam and line up the cut that I just made. And I'm going to cut that all the way around and square that up. That's as simple as it is to make a 16 patch star. I think this is absolutely adorable. So now what do you do with this? You can absolutely make it into a quilt. You can make it in so many different sizes. You can make this into a table runner. You can make a couple of blocks, or you can make a lot. It's definitely up to you. But I love this layout. So what I've done is I've actually made it in a couple of different sizes. This is our 6.5 size. And what I did with this is just made it into a really cute mug rug. So I added just a 1 1/4 inch border all the way around it and backed it with some really cute Christmas fabric and put a binding on it. And I mean, that is such a cute little gift. Run to the dollar store, grab a white coffee cup and maybe some little tea biscuits or something, and give that away as a gift. What a great teacher gift for the holidays, or Sunday school teacher, or a neighbor, whatever. This is just so simple. And you can see in the different colors, it looks very different. This is very bold because of the navy here, the blue star points. This has a striped star point, so the star is a little harder to see. But just backing it, and I just even quilted it with just some plaid here, just some 1 1/4 inch squares, and called it a day. It was that simple. So that makes a great gift. Now, my favorite 16-point star that I have done, like I said, it is totally possible for you to use your scrap half square triangles that you've cut off of other projects. I made a cozy Christmas table runner that we got in a sew sampler quite a long time ago, and I made that, and I had lots of these tiny little half square triangles, and I thought, what am I ever going to use those for? I mean, guys, they were little. They ended up being like 1 inch squares when I tried them, and I made them into a cute little 16 patch. Now, This 16 patch is just about a 2.5 inch square, so it is really cute and dainty. You can make this into little coasters or mug rugs or something like that by maybe putting 4 together with some sashing and borders, and that would make it really cute. But I've made it into a Christmas tree ornament, and let me show you. I really liked just the raw edge of this, and so I didn't put anything on the back. You can still see it's got all the seam allowances and everything. But I took some adorable clothespins, the tiny, tiny, tiny little ones, and you can find these at normal, dollar stores just in your area. You can find these tiny clothespins, and I found these hangers. These are miniature doll hangers. They are supposed to be for doll houses. I think the dollhouse that this would fit in would be pretty big. They are about 4.5 inches long, and so a 4.5 inch block or smaller fits on them. And all I did, guys, I just clothespinned this to here, and it fits perfectly. I got these hangers on Amazon. I will try and have Tech Guy link them down below so that you all can purchase them if you would like. But this is just a simple 16 patch that I just showed you. And look, it just hangs so cute on the tree. And you'll see these kind of in some of our videos on our tree, and I just think they look adorable. You could definitely make the block bigger. You could make different blocks. You could have like star sampler blocks and have different stars all over your tree. But I thought that was such a cute twist to a Christmas ornament, and it looks perfect in our studio tree. Thank you so much for joining us in the hive today. I hope that you all had a really fun time creating this 16 patch. I know it got a little confusing there. I was calling it a 12 patch for a little while. I even had you set some half square triangles aside and then bring them back. Mom brain. But I had a really good time. I hope you really enjoyed that ornament. Like I said, Tech Guy's gonna link the Amazon link down below where you can find those little hangers, and you can pick up some cute little clothespins and make some adorable little Christmas ornaments. And you can even take some leftover blocks and make some really cute mug rug gifts. Well, thank you again for joining us in the hive today, and we hope that you all have a great weekend.